heard my daughter's voice, filled with surprise and panic. In response, I desperately tried to hang on to my fading consciousness, but all my efforts were futile, and I fainted right in front of my daughter. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed, after having been rushed to the ER. My daughter was there, clutching my hand tightly, refusing to let go. I must have given her quite a scare. I was filled with guilt, about to apologize when she spoke before I could.
"Mommy, the baby in your tummy says they don't want to get erased by Daddy."
At her mysterious words, I held my breath in surprise. My name is Linda Williams. I'm a 27-year-old homemaker living with my husband Mark, who is 2 years my senior, and my 4-year-old daughter, Sarah. I used to work as a sports trainer until recently when I had to quit. The reason? I'm expecting our second child. I really didn't want to quit, but after my pregnancy was discovered, I started feeling unwell more often and had no choice but to leave. I was depressed after quitting a job I loved, but there were also good aspects. Up until then, Mark wasn't very helpful with housework or child raising, but he started taking the initiative for my sake. I'm worried about my health, but I'm glad that Mark is changing. At that time, I thought everything would be okay.
"Mommy, wake up. It's morning."
When I woke up to Sarah's innocent voice, it was 7 a.m. The school bus for Sarah's daycare arrives at 7:30 a.m. I jumped up in a hurry. "Shoot, Sarah, we need to get ready quickly."
"What's wrong?"
"We overslept. If we don't hurry, the bus will be here." While rushing my confused Sarah and leaving the room, I realized that I hadn't seen Mark anywhere. He usually leaves around 7:15 a.m., so he should still be at home. Maybe he's downstairs. Maybe he's having breakfast. Although a little annoyed that he didn't check on us, I headed for the stairs. That's when it happened. I slipped, and I felt a momentary sensation of being thrown into the air. "I'm going to fall!" Instinctively reaching out for the handrail, I managed to grab onto it and prevent myself from tumbling down the stairs. Oh, that was close. I put my hand on my stomach immediately, but I didn't hit it, and it doesn't hurt. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, Sarah, looking pale, rushed over.
"Mommy, are you okay?"
"I'm fine, honey. Sorry for scaring you." Regaining my footing, I embraced Sarah. Then, Mark, who must have noticed the commotion, rushed over from downstairs. "What happened?" "I slipped and almost fell down the stairs." "Whoa, be careful." "I'm sorry, but it was like the floor was slippery." "What?" "And the floor seems to be cleaner than usual. I hadn't noticed until now, but the wooden floor in the hallway was sparkling, as if someone had polished it." Then Mark said in a flustered manner, "Oh, right. I waxed the floor last night." "Wax? Why would you do that all of a sudden?" "I noticed it while cleaning the floor, but I guess I got a little too excited. I'm sorry." "Oh, I see." I was surprised by the idea of him waxing the floor, which was something he had never done before. But he had been doing a lot of housework recently, so perhaps he had started noticing the little things. Once men start paying attention to details, they just can't stop, can they? Even though I found it a bit strange, I decided not to worry about it. A few days later, on a Sunday, Mark had to go to holiday work, so I decided to take Sarah to the park, just the two of us. Before, I would run around and play with Sarah, but I can't do that now. I watched Sarah playing on the swing. A water bottle Mark had prepared for me in hand. Who would have thought that Mark would start preparing things like water bottle for me? When Sarah was first born, Mark was so uninterested in anything to do with the house. It still brings tears to my eyes when I think about it. He also had no interest in Sarah. So every time I say something to him, he gets grumpy. And coming home from work became later and later. The fact that he now prepares a bottle of water for me is still a shock. But I can't hide how happy it makes me. Thinking about this and feeling a bit thirsty, I decided to take a sip of the tea Mark had prepared for me. Then,
Mommy?
After drinking about a quarter of the bottle, I suddenly felt dizzy and began to feel unstable on my feet. I grabbed onto the fence of the swing for support, but even then I could feel my strength fading, and it became increasingly difficult to stand.
Mommy, what's wrong?
Mommy. Hearing Sarah's surprised and worried voice, I desperately tried to hold on to my fading consciousness. If I faint here, I'll leave Sarah alone. But even with this thought, I fell right there while protecting my stomach. When I came to, the first thing that hit my eyes was a stark white ceiling. For a moment, I didn't understand where I was, but then I noticed the smell of disinfectant and the figure of a nurse appearing saying, "Are you all right?" I realized then that I was in a hospital. At the same time, I thought of Sarah. "Excuse me, Sarah, do you know where my daughter is? She should have been with me when I fainted." I sat up and asked the nurse. She said, "Ah," and seemed to understand immediately. Maybe trying to reassure me, she smiled at me. "She came to the hospital in an ambulance with you. She should be with your husband now." "My husband?" "He left work early to come here. He arrived a little while ago. He's such a caring husband." The nurse said that she would go and call them, and then left the room. Feeling relieved that Sarah was not alone, my head started to spin again, and I collapsed on the bed. Why, when there was no issue during my previous prenatal checkups? Was it because I moved around too much, or did I eat something bad? As these thoughts spun around in my head, I suddenly remembered the tea from the water bottle that I had drank just before I fainted. Come to think of it, that tea. Just as I thought about this, the door opened, and the nurse, a doctor, Mark, and Sarah came in.
Mommy!
"Sarah, I'm glad. I'm sorry for leaving you alone."
I'm okay, but what about Mommy? Are you okay, Mommy?
"Yeah, I'm all right now." As I patted the head of Sarah, who had rushed over to me, the doctor smiled next to me. In the end, it was decided that I would be hospitalized for 2 or 3 days. After a thorough examination by the doctor and the nurse, they left the room. Mark said, "I'll go buy a drink," and he also left. In the hospital room, it was just me and Sarah. Then, Sarah seemed a bit restless and looked like she wanted to say something. "What's up, Sarah?"
Mommy, can you keep a secret from Daddy?
"Huh? Okay, but why?" Although I was wondering why, I nodded in agreement, and Sarah brought her face closer to me with a serious look.
The baby is saying that they don't want to get erased by Daddy.
"Huh?" I was momentarily speechless, unable to understand what Sarah was saying. Sarah then pursed her lips in dissatisfaction and spoke a little louder.
The baby is saying Daddy's being mean, and the tea in the water bottle.
At these words, I was taken aback, because I too had sensed an unusual bitterness in the tea from the water bottle. At the time of drinking, I thought maybe Mark had bought a different type of tea than usual and didn't give it much thought. But thinking about it now, I was hit by a terrible dizziness just after drinking that tea. I had a slight feeling somewhere in my heart that there might be some relation to the fainting incident. But what does it mean by the baby is saying? "Hey, Sarah." "I'm sorry I'm late. The cafeteria was crowded." Just as I was about to ask Sarah properly, Mark came back into the room. I swallowed my words in surprise, and Sarah seemed uncomfortable and buried her face in the bed. Mark looked at her with a puzzled expression. "Something happened?" "No, it's nothing." Well, whatever. I'm going home for today. I have to work tomorrow. Just rest up, okay?" Mark took Sarah's hand and left, but my daughter showed a momentary reluctance to leave. "Let's go home with Daddy today. Mommy is staying at the hospital."
Okay.
I can't help but feel uneasy about my daughter, who followed him without saying anything. I wonder if Sarah is okay. I was worried, but there was nothing I could do at the moment. I just had to make sure I could be discharged as soon as possible and crawled into bed. But I couldn't fall asleep easily, as Sarah's puzzling words kept coming to my mind. 3 days later, I was allowed to discharge. As my husband was working, my friend Kimberly came to pick me up. Kimberly was a friend from the same gym I worked at. She has been looking after me since I quit due to my health condition. I was shocked to hear you had fainted, but you seem to be doing much better than I thought. I've been sleeping so well in the hospital that I feel much better. I'm glad. I was worried because you're pregnant. While having such a conversation in the car heading home, I felt a bit uneasy inside. I have been constantly feeling sluggish and heavy-headed, but the discomfort improved in just a few days. The only unusual things I had done during that time were taking a break from housework and childcare and eating a balanced diet in the hospital. Upon thinking that, I suddenly realized something. So that means I didn't eat Mark's cooking yesterday. I remembered there had been several oddities since Mark started doing housework. Aside from almost slipping on the wax, there were other things that bothered me. For instance, things were placed in spots where they usually aren't, causing me to trip. Or the time I was told the shower was ready, but it turned out that the hot water tank was empty and cold water came out. Such incidents occurred frequently, especially when cold water came out. I rushed to the hospital out of concern for the baby in my belly, as it was in the winter. Fortunately, there were no problems, but it was a really nerve-wracking event. Of course, I thought these were just mistakes due to Mark's inexperience with housework. However, reconsidering now, each of them seemed to be something that could lead to irreversible consequences if one step was wrong. Linda, we're here. Ah, yeah. Before I knew it, we'd arrived at the house. Seeing my silence, she looked at me with worry. If you're feeling sick, you should say so, okay? Yeah, I will. Well, you should rest for today at least. I'll pick up Sarah, okay? Thank you, I appreciate it. As we got out of the car together, I thought to myself that I should talk to Sarah properly once she's back. In the evening, Sarah returned home with Kimberly. She even bought some deli food for dinner and said, "Call me if anything happens," before leaving. She was like a superhero. I silently jumped for joy in my mind. Having dinner with the deli food that Kimberly bought, I felt unusually well, so I decided to talk to Sarah again. Can we talk a bit more about the other day? I asked, and Sarah nodded seriously. Can you talk to the baby in my belly, Sarah? Yes, Sarah nodded firmly. It was hard to believe, but I felt that there was no falsehood in her words. Then can you tell me again what the baby is saying? Well, the baby is scared of Daddy. Why? Daddy is trying to hurt us on purpose and separate Mommy and the baby. So the baby is clinging to Mommy with all his might. I was at a loss for words at this revelation. Her words, though clumsy, connected the dots I'd been feeling. Everything that felt off might have been deliberately planned to harm the baby. Feeling this, I shivered. Mommy, what's wrong? Are you in pain? Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm okay. Seeing Sarah's tearful face, I hastily embraced my little girl. And I made a decision, in secret. I have to find solid evidence, or no one will believe this. The next day, after watching my husband leave for work, I pulled something out of the back of the closet. It was a baby monitor we used when Sarah was an infant. If this reveals what he's doing, if it showed what I feared. The thought was so frightening, but if it showed nothing, that would be okay too. With a small hope in my heart, I hid the camera behind a houseplant. Then, a few days later, I mustered up the courage to check it. I can't believe this. It's too awful. What was captured there was something unimaginable, enough to shatter my small hope. And then I made up my mind. I absolutely won't forgive this. A week or so had passed since I saw the footage. I left my daughter, Sarah, at my parents' home earlier in the day. Then, I tidied up the entire house and prepared a perfect dinner before Mark came home. Mark, who finally came home, was surprised to see the lavish meal set on the table.
What's going on? I could have made dinner.
I can't let you do anything dangerous anymore.
Huh? What? What do you mean?
I didn't miss the flash of caution in his eyes. I mean exactly what I said. What have you been feeding your pregnant wife all this time?
I don't get it at all.
My health has improved significantly since I stopped eating your cooking for the past week.
What's that supposed to mean?
I had pretended to eat my husband's cooking and threw them all away. When I told this to my husband, he was slightly shaken. Also, when I checked around the house, I noticed the non-slip pad under the rug was missing, and the anti-tip device on the bookshelf next to the bed was removed. I got goosebumps when I found these. These weren't just targeted at our baby. It implied I was also a target. When I glanced at Mark, his mouth was twitching as he tried to force a smile. Now that I think about it, there was a time when body wash had spilled on the bathroom floor after a shower, and things fell from shelves. If I'd fallen and hit my stomach, it would have been a disaster.
Those are just coincidences, right? Maybe I just made a little mistake.
I thought so too, until I saw this. I thrust my phone in front of his face, and when I played the footage recorded on the baby monitor, there was Mark talking on the phone with someone, and his voice was clearly recorded.
I get it, but it's not going as planned. It's surprisingly hard to make a person disappear in an accident. Well, two people. It would be best if the baby in the belly could disappear too.
Those words from the video sent chills down my spine no matter how many times I hear them. Watching Mark, he was shaking minutely and trembling in silence. Despite being wary, I continued to speak. The person on the phone is a woman, isn't it? Once I'm gone, you're talking about doing this and that. Things too disgusting to even mention.
That's bullshit. You're spying on me like this? I'll sue you.
How dare you? Do you even understand what you've done?
Shut up. Just shut up.
No longer able to find excuses, Mark, his face bright red, lost control and lashed out at me. Instinctively, I hunched over to protect my stomach. Just as I did, a loud bang sounded, and the next moment, I heard Mark scream. "Landa, are you okay?" "Kimberly, thank you." I looked over with relief to find Kimberly, who easily subdued Mark and was laughing. In fact, she's a strong woman who has won the national wrestling tournament multiple times. For the day, I had asked Kimberly to stand by in the next room just in case. Mark, pinned down by Kimberly, was already reddening his face and bellowing.
You think you're alive because of who? Me, right? Yet annoying demands to play with the kids and help with housework. If you all would just disappear, I could live freely. Just get lost for my sake, you idiot.
So that's what you think. But thank you.
Huh?
Actually, you just helped me a lot by self-destructing. Saying so, I thrust my phone, which was in call mode, in front of Mark. The call was to 911. Actually, it had been in this state for a little while before, so all of Mark's words had gone straight through to the police.
Please, not the cops.
Mark was struggling to escape, but Kimberly had him firmly pinned down and he couldn't move.
I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please, I apologize, forgive me.
That's not something you can get away with just by apologizing. What you were about to do?
Don't say such things.
While Mark was thrashing around, the sound of several footsteps and a voice saying,
"We're coming in,"
echoed, and the police officers entered through the door that was already unlocked. And in no time, Mark was taken away. Even on his way, Mark was pathetically clinging to me and pleading like,
"Help me."
A subsequent investigation revealed the plan by Mark and his mistress. The objective was to eliminate me, who was in their way, so they could be together. Even if they failed to get rid of me, they were contemplating a story that the loss of our child due to my carelessness would lead to divorce. Moreover, if they could blame it on me, they thought they could claim compensation at the time of divorce. The sheer audacity of it all leaves me speechless. But even now, when I think about what could have happened, if I hadn't noticed anything, it still sends chills down my spine.
Mommy, the baby is happy. She says she can always be by your side.
When I went to pick up Sarah, she said that right away. Yes, I'm so glad. It's all thanks to you. I thanked my daughter from the bottom of my heart, and tears of relief flowed.
Mommy, why are you crying? The baby is looking forward to meeting you. I'm also very excited.
About a month after Mark's arrest, our divorce was finalized. And a few months later from that, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Sarah is overjoyed at her sister's birth and has now become a very reliable big sister.